I think we're going to get started. Hello, can everybody hear me all right? Can you hear in the back? You guys can hear? Okay, good. So thanks for coming today. My name is Steve Gentile. I'm the Deputy Chair of Finance Administration for Department of Psychiatry. Before we get started, I just want to thank a few people, Gina for organizing this great lunch, and Kathleen Valera for helping out set up, and also Dawn Stewart for helping set up the AV. So thank you all. We can't do it without everybody's support. This is the second town hall that we've kind of had as a full department. We had one last year. We split it up into two, so this is really the second one. And I'm really excited, kind of how far we've come and, what we have here to present today. So I also want to just point out a few key members in the audience today. So Dr. John Crystal, our chairman. If John, you raise your hand over there. That's his seat, he told me. Bob Cole, that's his seat too, he told me. And Kyle Peterson and Amy Bradley, who were co-led the team. So you guys raise your hands. They know you? Okay, good. So, so you're going to hear from mainly them today, but I just wanted to kind of start with a few things, just some announcements. And then John will give a brief message. And then I will also give a brief background and overview. So some people have seen some of these slides before and kind of know. I know the individuals in the administrative team have seen some of this before, and they kind of know what we've been doing as an administrative group. But we've got a lot of new people here that kind of haven't seen this at all, and they're seeing this for the first time. So we'll give a brief overview. And then Kyle will lead the Project Synapse overview. And then we're going to be here for a Q&A. Anything you want to ask myself or John or Kyle or Amy, we're here to take any questions. So the first thing we're going to start with, it's that time of year again where we have long-term service anniversaries. So I'm going to ask each of you that are on these, there's a lot of people that are here on these slides, if you could just stand up or maybe even just raise your hand, something just to show that you're here. So 5 years. Anybody here on the 5 year that can raise their? Yeah. And we're going to have to clap after each one. So we got the 10-year anniversaries. Anybody? Yeah, there you go. 15 years. I know a few people on it. And 20 years. Anybody here 20 years? In the back with me. Great, man. 25 years. We're getting there now. Wow. 30 years. Susan Brown, Cindy Morgan, you guys are here? And we have one final one for this year is 35 years. Martha Montoya. So it's quite an accomplishment. We've got some people that will be hitting 45 next year. So this is great. So I commend everybody. So one last round of applause for everybody. So this is Dr. Crystal, and he's just going to, got that picture there off the way. He's going to say a few words.
Thanks. It's great to be here, and thank you, Steve, for the opportunity to join you for this celebration. It should say 31 years next to my name. I see only round numbers. Okay. So come back in a few years. It's really nice to have the chance to be together, and I think it's really important to celebrate these awards that we're recognizing, because at least I found that the more you spend time in a place, the more you put down roots, the more you make connections. And building a community and working together is really all about the connections you make, the collaborations, the friendships, and how we find ways to work more effectively with each other and really make this the kind of community that everybody wants to work in. And so I really value those accomplishments of dedication really becoming part of this core of this department. The other thing I want to say is that that we are, as a department, we are listening more than we did before, and Steve gets a lot of credit for this, which is that Steve gets the faculty surveys, the staff surveys, the climate surveys, and pays real attention to them, and really highlights areas that need work. And then he doesn't just work on it with you all, with the staff leadership team, and now more broadly with the staff, but he brings it to me, and we spend a fair amount of time going over the issues that we're addressing, and then we bring it to the executive committee of the department, and I think we also brought it to. Did we bring it to tenured faculty as well? If we didn't, we plan to. So that the feedback that you provide us about what's good and what's not good about our community and working are things that we take really seriously, and we really try to act on it. And today is a part of that process. So later in the program, we're going to have an opportunity to talk about and hear things that you think are that we should know about what it's really like to work here. I said this last year, and I'll say it this year, and I'll say it all the years that we get together, which is that the staff of the department are the core of the department. Oftentimes, people are trainees and they come for a few years and they go, or they're a postdoc fellow and they come and they go. They come as an assistant professor and then they work here for a few years and have a good experience, and they move on to be chair of another department or something like that. But 35 years of continuity, that's telling you about somebody who's here and is part of the backbone. And so we are only as good as the department is you are as a staff. So we really appreciate all the work that you do. We know that we, as a group, that the staff don't always get all the information to you in timely fashion. It's not always as complete as it might be. The attention to detail sometimes is less than perfect, and we're irritable and pressured and in our own heads, and you find ways to help us diffuse our disabilities and to get the job done and to get everything conducted, and at the end of the day, we really, really appreciate all that you do. And so thank you. I think I could keep talking, but I think I would just say the same thing over and over. So thank you again for the opportunity to talk to you, and we'll continue the discussion later in the program. Thank you.
No, thanks, John. And John's serious when he means that we do talk about this a lot. John and I meet every week, and there's always some issue that pops up. And it's great to work with a partner and a chair that really does get this and really believes in this. And also John's, we'll talk about it a little later, but we brought things to the executive committee and leadership, and so everybody hears the voice of the staff. So a lot of what I'm going to present, for many people in this room, they've seen some of this before, but there's a lot of new people, and I want to just give a brief background on why we're here. And the best way to I thought to put this kind of one slide together to give an overview is like the timeline. So basically, for those of you who don't know, there's the University Workplace Survey, and it's designed to improve workplace culture, climate, and engagement among work teams, among work groups. And who takes this survey is basically all C&Ts, service and maintenance workers, and M&Ps. So it's not postdocs, or it's not faculty, or it's not residents. It's this core group of people or who the university surveys. And there's basically been 6 surveys going back to 2004. So if you've been here, long enough, you've taken this survey multiple times. And the last survey date, which is why it's in red, is that's a survey right now that we have that we're working with, is 2017. I believe the next one will be 2019. Is Kathleen Valera, is it coming up in this year? Yeah, later on this year. So in December 2017, actually, the first time the survey was actually ever presented in this department to the administrative core team was in December 2017. So the department had the survey, but it wasn't really presented or distributed and before. And that I've been in multiple departments over the years, and that does happen. As you'll hear in some of the themes when Project Synapse comes up and talks, we are a very complicated department. It is a large department. It's very complicated, and I can understand why it's hard to to sometimes take an endeavor like this and present it out. But what I decided to do and what the team was, we focused on the administrative staff first. So there's many people I know here that have heard this multiple times. It's about a core of 50 people, and that was the first time the survey was actually ever presented in the department to the administrative staff. And from December 2017 to now, we've been doing action planning for the administration staff. And that has kind of been my focus. These are mainly the direct reports that have come up to me, clinical research, education doesn't have a direct reporting to me, but is part of our team, and faculty affairs and all those areas. So everybody in this room that's in those areas will know that we meet monthly and we get together and we talk about these things a lot. The first time the survey was actually presented to now the rest of the psychiatry staff, it's about 300 people, was in 2 town halls. We split them up because we didn't know how many people were going to come. And we basically did it in January, February 2018, and we did the same exact presentation and let everybody know about the survey and what the results were. Action planning for the rest of the department has really just started happening over the last few months or so, where we convened a workplace survey committee. And if people remember, I sent an email out asking for volunteers, not just from administration, but from all areas: clinical research, basic research, any part of the department that we can kind of get people to represent the rest of the department. So that committee was convened in January 2019, and this group, who's going to present, Kyle will present today what the group came up with, but they created what's called Project Synapse. So they took the generic workplace survey committee kind of derivative that most departments call this committee, and actually brought it into their own, into a whole new project that they're going to present today. So, and today, April 2019, soon to be May, I guess, but April, we're here at basically the second town hall on this to present Project Synapse. So just quickly, that was just to give kind of an overview for people who hadn't seen this before. This is the survey. Again, most people have seen this multiple times, but for those you haven't, we have basically an 84% employee commitment score is excellent. It's a very good score. There's not any major issues that we have here, but there are some opportunities. The little dashes you see right here are kind of how Yale fares overall, and we're pretty much either above what Yale or close to it, a little below in some areas. So this, in a nutshell, is how the university takes the series of questions and brings it all together. And so we're not going to go over this in detail, but there also, along with this, there's questions. There were hundreds and hundreds of questions that John and I personally went through together. And they're blinded. You don't know who said what. But for the most part, it gives you kind of a pattern. So along with this, along with the questions, along with the survey, it gave us a pattern of areas that we wanted to focus on. So for those of you that remember, these were basically the opportunities that we found. We felt employee morale could use some work, teamwork, stress, performance management, development, and diversity. And all of these are at different stages for different groups right now, including what we'll talk about today with Project Synapse. So I want to talk about the action plan we've done with the administrative staff. Those of you, and a lot of people here are from the administrative staff, will know the things that we've been doing over the last year and a half or so. So we have a monthly meeting. Everybody knows we announce birthdays, new employees, long-term service. We give department programmatic updates, department overviews. We focused a lot on culture, standards of business contract, culture, equity, inclusion. So we kind of rotate through a lot of things. And recently we just started bringing programs over to the group. Bob Cole presented on CMHC. Bob Robow presented on the education program. Frank Fortunati is going to come and present on Yale New Haven. So this is to kind of give everybody administrative team another sense of what's going on in certain areas and get kind of what I kind of like to call cross-knowledge understanding. It might not be your direct area, but it's good to know about these things. We also do now a yearly administration team retreat. The next one's coming up in June where we do team building exercises. We have a values committee, and this was started even before I started in the department, where we try to bring people together. One of the reasons why I wanted everybody to come at 11:30 was so that you can kind of just sit here and have lunch and talk for a little bit. We always rush in and out of meetings. We never get that time really just to say hi and sit and talk to people. So we actually have monthly eat and greets at 300 George Street and 100 Church Street. Again, this is focused on the administrative staff because we are one big department, but we're separated into these two areas. And we also have done a few things together where we've walked over for Yale events, Founders Day or things like that. We get a group of us and walk over to the event together. We've had a few after our social events. And then things like Toys for Tots and Super Bowl pool, which John actually won this year, or was one of the winners. Sal won twice. So these are the things kind of just bringing people together, as John was talking about. And then we're also been focusing on talent planning, taking advantage of all the great things we have at Yale for development. And we just started recently a health and wellness program that Yale actually helps supports as well. We did massage chairs for the administrative group right after budget time, and it was, I think, a good success. I think most people here took advantage of it. Those were all the things that we've been doing kind of for the administrative core. But the next step was how do we get out of just the 50 people within the administrative team and actually branch out to the rest of the department. So this is when we had the town halls last year, similar to this, and we presented the workplace survey. And out of that came the workplace survey committee. And it didn't get started. It took a while to get started, but once we did that, that committee was convened. And as I said, that committee started around September. We came into the summer and we kind of waited for things to die down with that, and then we started right in the fall. And they've been meeting regularly for the last few months where they've come up with Project Synapse. I met with them a few times during that process, and basically what we asked them to do was focus on, are those highlighted in red? Can you see those there? Yeah. So we asked the team to focus on morale, teamwork, and stress. The guidance we got from the university was if you try to do too many things at once, then you end up kind of accomplishing nothing. So we wanted to really focus on 3 areas that this group can get together on. So they met for a few months and they presented they came up with a great plan, Project Synapse, and presented their findings and their thoughts to me, and then as John said, the executive committee. So the executive committee has seen the survey, and then they've actually were the first ones to hear the presentation of Project Synapse of what the group came up with. And so they approved it, and they're very supportive of it. And everybody agrees we want to put some resources into this and really take this to the next level. So that, briefly, in a nutshell, is kind of where we got to today. And I'm really excited kind of going forward because I think really we have something here to build on that you're going to hear about today. So the real work was done by the group, and Kyle will go through this with everyone and tell you who the people are and go through the kind of some of the history here. But I just want to really thank Kyle, Amy, and the rest of the team that are here today. And I'd like the team to stay after if you're in the audience, because we want to get a quick picture with the team that helped develop this afterwards. Chris is going to take one of that. So without As John said, I could just go on, and you don't want to hear me. Really, you came here to hear Kyle, our keynote speaker. And so without further ado, I want to welcome Kyle. So Kyle's the director of the CMHC Foundation.
Great. Thank you, Steve. I'm also going to invite Amy Bradley up, who you can describe where you work and what you do. We'll each take turns just describing that. So why don't you go first?
I work at the psychiatric hospital with Dr. Fortunati. So anybody who's has anything to do with Yale New Haven Hospital goes through our office.
Great. So as Steve mentioned, I work here at Connecticut Mental Health Center. So who here works at Connecticut Mental Health Center? Let me see by show of hands. Great, excellent. So we've invited everyone into our basement rec room to have this meeting today. That's kind of what it feels like, and that's the kind of spirit that we want to have. It's like inviting our friends over. How many people are here for the first time? Never been to CMAC before? So a special welcome to you to come over here. Part of what we hope is we'll get to understand not just what we do in our work, but where we work and what the cultures are in the many different places. And we'll see some of that as we work through some of these slides. I want to say a special thank you to Steve and to Dr. Crystal for their support of this. As Steve mentioned, it was in the town hall meetings last year that we first became fully aware of the results of this survey that some of us had been taking for many years. And that was a great opening to begin to explore what we can do as a department to make our workplace and our relationships, our experience in the department a stronger one. So many thanks to you for leading the effort and for your perseverance with it. So let's walk through this. So as Steve mentioned, we're not coming to you with the report of the Workplace Culture Committee. We thought that was actually really kind of dry. So as we thought about this, this idea, Project Synapse, is related to what we do in the Department of Psychiatry, and more importantly, gets to the point after the colon there. Let's get connected. And I think, Dr. Crystal, you struck some of those notes in your opening remarks. What can we do to feel more connected to each other, to our work, to our workplaces? So you'll see that that is going to be the theme of this presentation and the theme of what we think can guide our work together going forward. So this was our charge, and I think Steve laid out some of this, so we don't need to emphasize this too much, but we focused on morale, teamwork, and stress. We had the opportunity to look at the data, the survey, to talk with our colleagues, for our colleagues to talk with their colleagues, to get a deeper sense of what do we think is really going on in the department, what especially is going on for staff. I want to emphasize this point too. We are in uncharted territory. We've never had a response to the workplace survey. So what we have developed here is something that we're trying for the first time. So here was our goal that we decided, and that was just for all members of the Department of Psychiatry to feel and experience that sense of being connected for the optimal flow of information, innovation, and recognition. So those three parts. Why do we want to feel connected? Because we want that stuff to flow better in the spirit of synapses firing. We want all things to be working. And here's our team. So now, lots of them are in the room today, so I'm going to invite you to stand up so we can see you. Steve, you should stand up too. And Kathleen. And then Amy and I were co-chairs. And I got to move over here. I don't have my glasses on. So. Ruth, I saw Ruth earlier. Beth. Yeah. Trisha, I think, is not here today. Stacy's also not here today. Jen is here, I think. I saw her. Yep, there she is. Heather. Oh, Heather. Yep. Khalid. And you didn't. Sorry. Everyone's here. Yeah. So that is your team. So give them a great big round of applause. So, again, these were people who last year volunteered and said, I would like to get involved in this. I think I have something to contribute. And it was based on the work of people who made this commitment and stuck through it. It was mostly last fall We dedicated ourselves to trying to review this information and to keep things moving. How many of you have had the experience in the department where things just kind of like grind to a halt? We did not want that to happen. We wanted things to keep moving, and for us to present something to you to which we could invite others to then help us carry the work forward. So this team did a great job. Many of us want to continue doing this work, and we would invite those of you who want to join us to do that as well. So here are some of the challenges that we discovered as we looked through the data. So the department is big in these many different ways. Second largest department in the School of Medicine being the largest in the university. So the Department of Psychiatry is bigger than some of the schools at Yale University. It is enormous. How many people knew that it was that big? How many people did not know that it was that big? That you were working in such a big endeavor? Yes. 964 faculty. And that breaks down here with ladder faculty, clinical faculty, and research faculty. You'll notice if you total all those up, you do not get 964. Because, not because we don't know how to do math, but because we have a lot of adjunct and voluntary faculty, so the faculty is quite variegated. But we have a lot of core faculty represented in those numbers. And then, here's where we come in. 306 staff, broken down in this way, 134 CNT and 172 MPs, and then also 124 trainees. So it gives you some idea, not just of the size and scope, but of the balance between faculty and staff. So I think, as Dr. Crystal pointed out, the staff is a core component of this department. Without this, not just that number of staff, but without staff that have the various capabilities and competencies that we all have, the department would really not be able to function. 5 major clinical practice relationships. Some of that is represented here. I work for CMHC. We're a blended workforce of state and university employees. Amy works in the hospital, a blended workforce of hospital and departmental employees. Some of you may work for the VA. So we've got lots of different kinds of relationships. We manage a lot of money, and that takes excellent and competent staff to manage that much money. 124.2 million, probably even more than that. I mean, when we made the slides, that's what it was. But we continue to attract research dollars and other kinds of money. And then 182,000 square feet of operating space. And that might even be an underestimation.
It's a gross underestimation.
It's a gross underestimation. There you go, from my colleague. So all that's to say is it's complicated. How many times do we hear that in the department? When we try to explore something, we hear, oh, it's complicated. It's complicated. We want to move. We want to transition from that. But here is another way to look at finances, just how it's broken down, just to see where, so you can see lots of money in research, lots of money in clinical. Again, without really excellent staff to manage all of that, we would not be able to do that work. I'm going to let you talk about this one because you had fun making this one.
So we were trying to figure out how many physical locations that the staff are throughout the department. Because we realized even just in our core group that, like Udalyn mentioned, that there was a bunch, even within her smaller area, everybody was really spread out and they didn't even meet internally very often all together. So Kathy Underkoffler, didn't know why I was picking her brain for this, but I was asking her to give me a list of all the physical locations that we have, and then I was picking the brains of the gentleman in IT, since they have to go to all of these different locations, and realized that what we had in the department for physical locations did not line up with where everybody actually is. So I didn't know CMHC had a clinic in West Haven, or that we have all these subsets everywhere. There are faculty that are through Yale New Haven Hospital that go all the way up to Torrington and to L&M on the other side of the state. So this is a very, very small picture of where we are geographically, just in this area, just in the New Haven area. But it definitely does not encompass all of the locations that the staff are, which contributes to how disconnected people are feeling, because they're not around other people from the department. I'm the only university employee in my area. Everybody that I work with is hospital. So some people, Gina and Wanda, I think I didn't meet and see their faces until 6 months, 7 months after I started here. I emailed them every single week. I never actually met them face to face. So I think that contributes to why a lot of people the morale is kind of low. They don't know who to call. They don't know who to ask. They haven't formed these relationships with other people.
So this is all part of the picture of how complicated it is. Here's a listing of some of the addresses that we were able to map. And again, as Amy pointed out, there's a whole lot more that we didn't capture, and the department continues to grow in the type of work it does both in research and clinical services. So more challenges. The mission of the department is not communicated in a way that all of us have a shared sense of what it is. And some of that came through as we were looking at the website or looking at materials that we've received maybe in different kinds of communications. We know that we are involved in an important mission, but sometimes it doesn't seem as clear as it could be. And that can contribute to a sense of a lack of morale or a sense of being unable to work together as a team if you're not sure exactly what the mission of the organization is. So that was one thing there. Our department recognition of staff, faculty, and trainee accomplishments seems imbalanced, and it seems to favor faculty. And again, many of us work with faculty, so this is not a disparaging comment. We are excited about the work that we're able to do with faculty. We enjoy working in the department. We'd like to see some more balanced recognition of the staff contributions that enable the department to be as strong and successful and large as it is. And this is probably something that you're familiar with, that there are work silos and that there are ways that we're separated from one another. In part, what Amy was describing, if you just physically don't work with each other in the same location, or you're physically separated from one another, that's going to be really complicated. So finding different ways to think about addressing the kind of separation that we feel, again, both vertically and horizontally. So sometimes we feel like in just our coworkers, we're not really sure what they're doing, so we don't know how to maybe turn to them. And then also going in the vertical way, that sometimes we're not either going both up and down, we're not necessarily sure what's going on. So there's that kind of separation. So that said, we've got a lot of strengths. We are a really, really strong department. So lots of capacity to do many things. New Haven has a slogan, says it all happens here. You could say that about the department. We do so much in clinical research, education, and administration. Just going back to those previous slides, the number and kind of services, the number and kind of research that we do, the money that we manage, the space that we manage, the people that we interact with. We have a strong reputation both at the local and state level and also at the national and global level. We have an exceptional commitment to public health, and some of you may work in these various different divisions, and we have incredible accomplishments in terms of research and knowledge dissemination. And we would like to move from it's all complicated to it's all connected. And that's where we see the crux of Project Synapse. So how do we create the kind of pathways and networks that will allow us to share information better, share innovation better, and to share recognition of each other and of accomplishments across the entire department? And we believe that those things will contribute to improved morale, an improved sense of teamwork, and a reduction in stress. Not magically, but in some real sorts of ways. So we're going to suggest some things that we thought about. In terms of information, we're actually doing one of them. We're getting together in a town hall meeting. So we felt that that was really important. So how many people came to the town hall meetings last year that Steve mentioned? How many did not? So this is your first time encountering this. We really felt that it was important that a good thing was started by having that town hall meeting in terms of transparency and sharing information, and that could continue by continuing to convene groups like this, whether it's all staff. We also know that there are some challenges around, can we have town hall meetings where the faculty are included? Can we have town hall meetings where our partners who work in a blended workforce, like CMHC state employees or Yale New Haven Hospital employees or VA employees, is there a way that we can work together so that we can understand cultures differently? So that these kinds of meetings would be opportunities for us to share this kind of information. We also thought about, is there some way, and this is where your particular expertise might come in handy, is there some way that we can map what happens in the department that would be helpful to other people maybe coming into the department for the first time, or if you've been in the department for a while and things have changed and you really don't know how it's connected. So it's more than an organizational chart. It might even need to be something more interactive. But what we realized in our conversations and looking at what contributes to poor morale or a lack of a sense of teamwork is that if you don't really understand how the thing works, it's hard to know where to go next. So those are two recommendations we had in the information section. In innovation, we felt it was really important, this core group that we introduced that was meeting regularly, it was important for us to work on this specific project. As that work was going on, we learned all kinds of things about each other and about what's going on in the department, and realized that just that gathering of people who have knowledge that they can share with each other could go a long way towards us being able to identify more innovative practices that we can use, or to connect people to one another for things that they maybe have an area of expertise in. So convening that advisory group, and so some of the folks from our planning team are willing to continue, and if you would like to be involved in that going forward, we would invite you to do that as well. In a related kind of way, in terms of innovation, doing other things that would facilitate more staff-to-staff contact, because we have some people that are real experts at what they do. We have a lot of capacity internally within the department. We don't need to go outside of the department to reap the benefits of that, but we do need to find ways to connect people to do that. So some of it might be in any kind of knowledge sharing. Maybe it could be using technology to do some kind of sharing. It could be face-to-face kind of speed networking things where you come and, I don't know, you're really adept at.
What was the thing that you shared?
The
word.
The word clouds?
Yes.
Doing word clouds?
Yes.
So doing word clouds, mapping like what you did, like mapping all those different locations.
The snippet tool that we were sharing with each other.
Snippet tools, yes. So we think that there's lots and lots of opportunity to share information, and maybe even just to connect people for one-to-one peer consultation. Maybe, again, you're new in the department, or maybe you've taken on a new task and you don't really know it as well as someone else in the department does. Would there be a way to have some peer-to-peer consultation? So, do you want to do something?
Sure.
You can talk about something.
And then in terms of recognition, everybody gets the weekly emails that are sent out about grand rounds, and Chris always sends out the newsletter. But if you notice, it's all very heavily focused on faculty, and there's not really any input for staff accomplishments. And so one of the recommendations was to either do a separate one focused on staff, or to incorporate the staff into the one that is already existing. And a lot of us are often invited to go to grand rounds, but I know I personally at times don't feel like it's appropriate for me to go because there's so much to do, and that's really for faculty, right? But at times it would be nice if there was even topics that were more relevant to staff, of how to support their faculty members better, or a topic that you might have a particular interest in that you want to go to that. If the faculty are more on board with you, like, let's find a way to carve out some time so that you can attend that. We thought that would be important. And also just putting staff on the actual invite. Like, we'd love to see you there, in addition to the faculty. And then recognition, host periodic social gatherings to acknowledge, support, and celebrate. Kind of similar to what Steve was doing, celebrating anniversaries for people. But also I think this extended a little bit further to just even learning who each other are and making connections within the department. Beth doesn't know this, but I gave an example to the executive committee, that because of this meeting, Beth and I both do work with one particular faculty member. We are physically located within a building that's the same building and didn't know each other until we were on the committee together. And one day she emailed me and said, hey, I have to move all this stuff. They're redoing our rugs. We're going to store it in the basement at your building. Do you know where I can get a cart to move all of these files? And I was like, yeah, there's one next to my desk. Come and grab it. Had we never met before, I can only imagine, 6 phone calls in 3 days, and maybe you would have gotten somebody to help you carry all the boxes down, right? So those types of connections we think are important and are going to improve morale. And if everybody can even just get together and learn what everyone does. When I started, probably a lot of the people in administration know, I would send out emails and put about 12 people on it because I had no idea what anybody did. And I needed my question answered. So I would just ask everybody and see who decided that they had the information to share with me. But if we start to get connected in that way, where you know, oh, that's the person I can go to for this. And if they're not here today, I could ask this person. And we think that that'll make people feel more supported, especially when they're in areas where they're disconnected from a lot of the other staff.
I think that concludes our presentation. So we'd be happy to. We would be happy to take any questions or any comments from our other team members who helped to get us to this point. So we'll open it up to you all. So I'll start with a question for you then. Does this reflect the department that you work in? Did it resonate with you in your own experience? I see some head nodding.
Don't be shy, everybody.
Yeah.
Please. Which parts of it?
Any parts of it. Yeah.
I think I can relate to what Amy was just saying. I've been here for just about a year. So when I got into the department, I wasn't really aware of who you contacted. And I've been lucky enough to have found a pretty supportive group of people, so they come to me and they tell, oh, go to this person, go to that person. And it's made me feel more part of the team for sure. So if there was a way to kind of improve that and make it more consistent, I think it would be beneficial to everybody, regardless if you've been here for a week, month, or years.
Yeah. Tell us your name and where you work in the department.
Stephen Neely, I work in faculty affairs.
Great. Thank you very much.
Steve came from research. He was actually in a research lab and actually did a career change to actually do something more administrative, which is, I think, a great success story of what we want to do about being connected in different areas. I mean, I think for staff especially, I always tell, I've worked in cardiology, neurosurgery, all different, but I didn't go to school for those subspecialties. I went to school for administration. So I'm not really bound to a department, and I think we kind of have to think of the department that way too. If you work in a certain area, if you want to make a career change, this department is big enough, is complicated enough that you can actually do that. And we've had a few examples of that are right here in this room. Steve's one of them. So.
Yeah. I think I saw, yeah.
So everything that you said resonated with me, and part of my job frequently is to explain the Connecticut Mental Health Center, and so everything that you said about the department, you could say the same about the Connecticut Mental Health Center. We're large, we're all over the place, we're complicated, and one of the things that we don't do is introduce people. We have a great orientation, but as great as it is to CMHC, and I don't know if there's a psychiatry orientation, people have no idea where the heck they're working. We've had people working at the Connecticut Mental Health Center who have no idea about the depth and the breadth of the research and the training, if they're working, for instance, in the administrative capacity, or if they're working in one of the clinical programs. Or conversely, if they're working in research, they have no idea about the enormous clinical enterprise this is. And so the same could be said, and in fact, that's basically what you're saying. People work in the Department of Psychiatry, all these different locations, different functions. They could even work side by side, and they have no idea what in the heck is going on here. And I think we need to do a better job of just basics, like where do you work and what do people do, and how do I fit into it? So I applaud you for your efforts.
yes, that impacts teamwork and morale, which may seem like fluff stuff, but it also impacts efficiency
Yeah.
and it impacts quality of productivity. And I would think that would be a problem for all of our bosses. You know, if we aren't being as efficient as they want us to be, I think this is one way for us to improve on that. Or getting as good a job done.
One thing that I would like, that I've requested, I'd like tours of the different institutions. So I've reached out to Amy and asked her for a personalized tour of the psychiatric hospital. I've reached out to a colleague at the VA. I find the VA very intimidating. I have no idea where to go once I get there. And I'd love a tour, and maybe there would be interest. Maybe other people would like tours, and I hire a lot of faculty. And I'd like to see where they work. So that would really kind of put things together for me and maybe some other people.
It's funny, I saw in one of the emails today from Yale HR suggesting a similar kind of thing, to go visit maybe Harkness Tower, but let's go visit CMHC, let's go visit the VA, let's go visit the hospital. And then they said, maybe you could go out to Arethusa for ice cream or something like that. So we could maybe make it fun in many different kinds of ways. But I kind of joke about that, but I think that doing those kind of things where you get to know each other and you get to enjoy each other's company, we spend a lot of time together. And so feeling connected to one another in the many different ways that we can do that, whether it's enjoying lunch and then a conversation, or getting out into our places of work, inviting you into our basement at CMHC, we'd love to have you back and show you some of the other places where there's windows and things like that. So there was another hand, I think, is there someone over here? No? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chris Diana. I'm the program coordinator for the Consult Liaison Psychiatry Fellowship. And I just want to point out something that's really nice that our residency program does. Jen and Dr. Rohrbach send out a contact sheet every year, and it has everyone's name, email address, and most importantly, exactly what they do. And that is the most helpful thing that I think was ever created for me anyway.
So, as we come back to here, remember I mentioned designing some kind of organizational map? That could be something that fits in there, And again, this does not necessarily have to be a static thing. We're definitely not talking about an org chart. We're talking about something more dynamic that helps you really understand how does the department work, and if I had some interest in something, where would I even begin, so you don't feel like you're flailing. So if that's something, you don't have to know how to do this, but if you have an interest in that, and you have ideas about what it should look like, not how you get there, but what it should look like, we'd love to include you. Many of us have taken a lot of the online trainings through the Yale website. Maybe it's some kind of online thing that you can get onto for like 5 minutes, and it'll walk you through the different iterations of how the department functions and where it works. So there are lots of different ways to think about that.
The administrative team pulled together today, this year put together a new faculty orientation. So we had everybody came and spoke from it for new faculty, but I think that would be helpful to everybody. I mean, it really goes through each parts of the more administrative compartments of the department, but also to your point, when I was trying to put my overview for that orientation together, and I was trying to get on the website what research programs we really have, I couldn't really make sense of how to do that, or what's technically a clinical program, so it is very complicated again. And when anytime I'm trying to, you say the word research, you say the word clinical, what does that really mean? Is it by location? Is it So I think there's some things we can build on there.
There's a lot of overlap too.
Yeah. And we're actually going into, now we're crossing state lines, as far as the fall goes, we'll be going out to Westerly. We have a new geriatric psychiatrist will be going out to Westerly. So we are going to continue to expand, and I think we should take a step back and see where we are.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
I'm Kristen Buddy. I'm a new faculty member. I work in the psych emergency room at Yale New Haven Hospital. And a lot of this is focused on staff, which I think is wonderful and appropriate, but are there any things that faculty could do to help with this? Like, what could I do tomorrow to make this like a little bit better?
So that is a good question. Let me give a kind of technical answer first. So part of the reason this was focused on staff is because the workplace survey itself is administered to staff, and so it's dealing with staff responses to the workplace setting. And so we're following through on a charge that we received last year, as Steve mentioned, from the town hall meeting, to begin to work on this and to begin to think of ourselves as a complex and large staff that has some contributions to make. We would love to figure out ways for staff and faculty to celebrate the way that staff and faculty work together, to improve those relationships where we can and where we need to. So I think part of what we're trying to say here, going back to something that a lot of us felt, is that there just seems to be an imbalance that favors faculty accomplishment. So if there's things that you can do within the context of your work to recognize and acknowledge the staff contributions that are being made, speaking as a staff person, I think that will go a long way. I love working with the faculty that I interact with on a regular basis, and I think we all sense that we are carrying this load together, and we would like to be all kind of recognized for the different kinds of contributions that we make. So I don't know if that's helpful to you.
I mean, I think I'm just like sitting here horrified because I'm thinking about all of the newsletters, and I'm like, oh, faculty, 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 and like 2 residents, and then nobody else. And I know that like all of these wonderful people are sitting there like typing all of this and making sure the lights are on, and like I feel like I feel really bad now, and I feel like and I know that like now I'm faculty, like I'm part of the problem in some way. So like it's just like, is there anything small I can do just to start?
It was one of the common themes that came out of the group that was about the faculty, staff. I don't want to say so far as a divide, but just kind of how do we bring it together?
Yeah, no, I
And
think
that was a common theme, and I think that's going to be one of the things that comes out of here. You know, we're kind of started from really ground zero, from the survey really never getting out, kind of sitting on a shelf, to really getting out there. It's kind of concentric circles kind of getting out there. But I think a big part of this, and FaceTime is important. FaceTime is really important. We try to do that on the administrative team a lot. At least once a month, everybody knows they're going to see me and everybody else, and we'll have lunch together. But we need to do more of that with faculty, more of that as a whole with all the staff in the department. So it was a common theme. We're just trying to go thoughtfully through this approach, because what I worry about is getting too big too fast, and then we end up not doing anything. So it's really trying to be thoughtful about the approach. But it's great to hear your support, because I think that's going to go a long way.
So one thing that we could do is all of the awards that were mentioned today could go into the newsletter. Now, so one of the things that happened, those of you who have been around for 20, 30 years, remember the old department newsletter, which was mailed out. Do you remember that? And it had basically told you about the travels of one member of the faculty. It was the only faculty member who ever listed any of his travels or activities. And everybody who knows which faculty member. Like, what? Going to New York? That's like an hour and a half from here. But when we created this new kind of more dynamic newsletter, it is a vehicle. It became a vehicle for people to communicate with each other. And if you thought of it the same way that the faculty thought of it, then when important things happen in the staff, you would be as inclined to just send Chris Gardner, who many of you I'm sure know, or right here. Where's Chris? Raise your hand. Hello, everybody.
This town hall will be in the newsletter, I promise.
Yeah.
So Chris could certainly put the awards in the newsletter, and we can think of other kinds of activities and staff that we wanted to highlight. Part of what Chris and I have also talked about that might be helpful is how do we tell the stories of being in the department, and we could also do that for the staff as well, because for the faculty, it was always a joke that you would go to a national meeting or an international meeting. You'd be in Tierra del Fuego, which is like the southernmost part of South America. You'd be at a meeting, and then you'd meet someone, and you'd say, "Where are you from?" And they say, "Oh, I'm from Yale." And you never met them before, and you didn't know what was going on. And And so we hope that the newsletter can be a vehicle to help people learn about what the range of things that people do. So maybe we could.
Yeah, we've already had some success. The Women in Medicine initiative actually highlighted, Vicky, right, was actually one of our staff members highlighted in that. And it's just one example of ways we can kind of expand something maybe initially designed for faculty, but also include the staff.
I don't mean to put all the work on Chris, but just to say that often people think of, and this is about kind of a fundamental attitude change, right? Which is that it's very easy to think about the newsletter or the department leadership as something that I wait until department leadership will contact me so that I can find out what's going on in the department. I wait for Chris to contact me so that I can get into the newsletter. But if we think about this more as teamwork or more as community, then you'll let Steve or I know when something good is going on, or you'll go directly contact Chris, because it's your newsletter. It's your vehicle to communicate to your friends and colleagues and collaborators what's going on, what good news is. So I hope you'll take advantage of just a shift in perspective a little bit, that kind of, so that you should feel empowered to make the most of this incredible community that we all find ourselves in.
I think that's just by saying that, I'm not sure if that's maybe been, like, the staff, it felt like a newsletter, maybe we could have, more. More. But this is good, this is why we need these open discussions about that, because I think you're right, I've always felt it was available, but, we haven't probably taken advantage of it, And I like the long-term service awards, I think that's a perfect example. Those should be on there, and this town hall should be on there. And then as we expand into these other endeavors, everything that we're doing, should be there. Should be. I mean, that newsletter is a very well done newsletter. We get compliments on it all the time, inside and outside of the medical center, and we'll just keep expanding on it.
Mary Kay had some.
I just was going to say, sometimes, I think the largeness of the department doesn't lead us to all be in one room.
Yeah.
And there are probably smaller, more organic groupings of faculty that happen. I know DSA has a leadership group where it might make sense. Like, I find it really hard to get information out to everybody. And my group, and I'll just introduce myself. I'm the senior ops manager over the research, and a lot of things happen that I have information about that I try to communicate out, and I find it very difficult to push that information out to people who want to hear it.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of people don't want to hear it in some ways, but having an understanding of what those smaller, like whether it's the tenured faculty meeting or places where we could actually go to give information would also, because sometimes I think the newsletter is not, I know I don't read the newsletter, I'm gonna be honest, which I will try harder, but I have a lot of things coming into my email, as we all do, and it's difficult. So, I mean, sometimes just being able to get to people where they're at and how to do that, maybe if there's these smaller groupings of faculty, I don't know, that.
But maybe you would read the newsletter if you and your friends were in it. Like, I read it because I feel like, oh, I know those people.
Yeah, no,
That's probably part of the problem.
I want to just comment on that, because, newsletter, like anything, is a tool, and it depends on how you use a particular tool, right? So here, when we talk about having an advisory group, I think that's something that advisory group could be surfacing these stories about not just like what are staff doing. This was not a project to say, pay attention to us, pay attention to us. What we're really kind of wrestling with is, how does this department work, really? How do staff and faculty interact with one another to do all those amazing things? So it would be exciting to see those stories about how do you see a staff and faculty team working together to achieve the things that they're doing, to attract the research grants that they're getting, to provide the treatments that they're doing. So thinking about that. And there might be some other tools, and some of those were things that we recommended here. I know just even in promoting, getting people here today, it was a lot of just using our own personal networks. That's another tool that we have. So yes, having the official invitation was good, but being able to forward that invitation to someone with a personal note saying, I hope you'll show up to this, is also something good. And so we have the power of 300 people in this department to make really exciting things happen in terms of the staff. One last thing I want to say to the question about faculty too is, I think what we learned too is in the disconnect and the siloing that happens, if there are ways to be able to encourage staff to reach out and connect, maybe even out of their small unit, because sometimes the help that they need or the connection that they might benefit the most from is not actually sitting in the room with them, but figuring out how to take advantage of the resource of the entire department, because we've got people in this department that are doing amazing things every single day. So if there's ways to just say, hey, do you need some time to go connect? Or I met Amy Bradley the other day, and you might want to talk to her because she might know some other people. So I think that's something that a faculty person can do to alert to a staff colleague that there are different ways to get connected to the deeper wealth within the department. So,
Or even just to go as far as to say, oh, you're stuck on this is really challenging. Let's see if there's, you know, even if they don't know who to direct you to, let's see if anybody else knows. Let's see if there's a way to make this easier so you don't have to reinvent the wheel by yourself.
so we know it is just past 1, so we want to let you know, in the spirit of effective communication, we told you what we were going to tell you, then we told you, and now we're going to tell you what's coming next. And that is that we have videotaped this presentation, so those colleagues who were not able to be here can view it, or if you want to view it again, we'll get it posted. Chris is going to help us get it up online. We're also going to follow up with a survey to you to, if you know, speaking or sharing your thoughts in this particular environment is not your strong suit, you'll have an opportunity to share your ideas. And we would love your involvement in any of these things that we propose. If you have a particular inkling to get involved, please let us know when that survey comes out to you, and we'll be happy to stick around and talk to you as you head out. So thanks again for coming. Again, thanks to Steve and to Dr. Crystal for our support.